What's up, y'all? I'm Richie here with Jesus.
Hi.
Welcome back to our channel. Today's episode, we're going to be reacting to a video from the channel Elephant in the Rooms about activism, and we're going to give our commentary to his commentary. So make sure you check out the original video, the original channel. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel and help us as we continue to try to get to know the society we live in a little bit better.
Do high-profile environmental protests actually help the planet? Or do they hurt their own cause? Are the people blocking highways and tossing tomato soup on Van Gogh paintings, are they waking anyone up or just making everyone angry? I'm Ken LaCourte. I find elephants in rooms, and I do my best to give it to you straight. Now, first, you should know where I'm coming from. I live on the water in the Bay Area. I want clean air and clean water. I don't want old tires floating past my window in the morning, and I hate garbage. If that makes me an environmentalist, great. But when I see some of the most visible environmental activists, I find myself rolling my eyes more than I find myself agreeing with them. So I dug into research. What works? What doesn't? And I found some intriguing things, including how hidden hands sometimes change the entire conversation. Like that the most famous environmental ad in history was paid for by the companies making the trash. And how some misguided activism has ended up killing lots of people, mostly kids. We'll start with why caring isn't enough, and how good intentions aimed at the wrong targets can backfire. Then the feel-good trap, why the brain rewards feelings more than progress. That's followed by who built the trap, with eye-opening influencers. Then a very real cost when activism goes wrong. Finally, what actually works. Okay, so nobody's against clean air. Nobody wants to see hillsides stripped down to the rock. You don't have to be an activist to want the landscape around you to be beautiful and healthy. But the people getting the most attention for saving the planet, the ones who zip tie themselves to goalposts or glue themselves to trains or spray red paint over buildings, it's hard to get around the notion that they've been taken in by performative activism. Feeling good dressed up as doing good. It's the environmental version of buying a Rolex. The point is being seen wearing it. So when the primary value of an environmental action shifts to creating social status for the people behind it, the Earth isn't getting help. Take plastic straws, for example. Following a series of global campaigns that looked at the ocean's health and efforts to save sea turtles, plastic straws were banned by cities and states across the world. Now, ocean plastic is a real issue that we should care about. The reality, though, is that straws account for less than 0.03% of ocean plastic. Fishing gear accounts for around 46%, at least in what's known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. We built a global movement around a rounding error and mostly ignored the 46%. It's like a fire department that ignores the burning house to stomp out a cigarette on the sidewalk, and then throws itself a parade. To be fair, the campaigns generically raised awareness about single-use plastic. But somewhere along the way, raising awareness got mistaken for solving the original problem. The movement then largely stopped at plastic straws instead of pivoting to the real problem. But it certainly helped protesters feel good, politicians get votes, and organizations get support. The straw movement didn't fail, it succeeded at the wrong thing. Cotton tote bags are another good example. Even by the friendliest math, you need to use that bag hundreds of times before it environmentally even comes close to the plastic bag it replaced. Where I live, they first banned thin plastic bags, then straws, then the reusable plastic bags that had replaced the thin ones. And that's all in a state with world-class waste management. It's performative activism. But successful movements, they win by expanding. They build coalitions large enough to put pressure on politicians and corporations. Performative activism tends to do the opposite. It narrows the base and alienates the persuadable middle, and it rewards something insignificant. Okay, so why do well-meaning people keep falling into the feel-good trap? The answer starts in the brain. When you share a social media post about how you've done something wonderful, you get that immediate social reward. Likes and attaboys from your friends, they give you a warm feeling about having done your part. That dopamine release. It's the brain's reward signal, and it's the same one that fires when you eat something great or win an argument. And our brains don't really distinguish between that reward and the reward of actually achieving something. Post an infographic about ocean plastic, collect your 47 likes, and your brain logs it as a win. Research on moral licensing backs this up. When people do something they consider virtuous, it creates kind of an internal credit, a license to be less virtuous later. One study found that people who had just purchased green products were later less likely to donate to environmental causes than those who hadn't. Households that put solar on the roof, they often use more power afterwards. It feels free, so why not? Hybrid drivers, they rack up extra miles. The good deed gets banked, then spent. But before anyone gets too smug, this isn't some left-wing defect. It's a human one. Displaying an anti-abortion sticker, it's not the same thing as donating to help a pregnant gal raise a baby or choose adoption. On all sides, people who publicly click and hashtag their support for a cause are often less likely to follow through with harder, real-world actions.
Okay, so with the first few minutes of the video, any initial reactions before I go?
I see a lot of the performative activism a lot more now these days.
Yeah.
Especially with some recent protests and stuff. When you really dig into them, it gets interesting. But anything you want to say? I know you got a lot to say.
Yeah. So for me, I've always felt some type of way about protesting. Because to me, it's like you make a quote unquote statement socially, but in the long run, does it actually do anything? And I'm not saying like activism alone is bad, especially like the in-person one where you're actually going out there in the front lines and like putting yourself in danger. You're letting your voice be heard. You're reaching out to people. You're contacting the right people that are actually the ones in charge and have the power, versus just like what he said, just liking or sharing or hashtagging, or just making a bunch of noise like a lot of these online activists tend to do. For example, like there was the No Kings March recently. There was also, what was the other march where there was like over millions of people in that protest, where it was like a lot of, I think it was supposed to be like the biggest march in the
It was the No King's Day.
and here we are, July 2026, and not much has changed. And that was a couple months ago. And everybody was patting themselves on the back, and they're, oh, that was great, and hey, good job, and we're sending a message. Are we? Because a lot of the time, these politicians, these these big wigs of these corporations, I mean, like they see it and they're like, oh, let them have their fun. As long as they're not actually having any type of real big effect, let them go out there and make their little noise and with their little posters and outrage online. As long as they're not affecting our pockets, that's all that really matters at the end of the day. So I've always felt some type of way. I'm not going to be that type that I'm going to go and shit on somebody to, like, if that's really what you're passionate about, if you want to go out there and protest, then you do you. But for me, I've never really felt that it's really an effective tool. Like peaceful protesting, I'm not saying that, rioting or any of that is the alternative answer either. But I feel that a lot of these like fake outrage, especially like like what the video is about like environmental activism happening, where it's like you're told that, well, this, I don't know, like the plastic straws or the plastic bags, like all of this is bad for the environment. And I feel that people do have good intentions, that they want to protect our environment, especially with climate warming and all that. But I don't feel we do enough research. We just kind of go off by like what he's saying, like off of our emotions, and we want to feel better by doing our part. Because if we don't do something, we tell ourselves, oh, well, if I stay quiet, then I'm also, I'm participating by not participating, and I'm guilty by association because I'm not, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But it's like, you have thousands, millions of people doing these type of activist movements for small little things and kind of ignoring the bigger things. So I think there's always going to be a case for activism, and I think it is effective when done right, when you're actually targeting the people in power. But if you're just targeting small little things or, whatever the activism is, and especially my criticism with online activism, where again you just think that, you know, back in the day canceling was, I don't know, you were solving, you know, world problems, you were ending wars and you were ending racism and all that, when in reality it's like, no, you're just censoring people. And a lot of this online bullshit, that's all it is. You push your emotions or your beliefs on other people, and just because, I don't know, maybe they turn off their account, or, you know, I don't know, you get somebody fired, you think that you're really making a big difference, and it's like, not really. You know, again, it's, to me, at the end of the day, it's all about distractions, and the ones at the top, they know how to distract us, and they they train us, and at the same time they pull the strings to where they're still in control, but they're making you feel like, okay, I'm actually doing something where I'm actually targeting them. And it's like, no, they cause the problem, then they throw a little so-called solution to a small little problem, then you quote unquote solve it, even though they're also tossing the solution to you, they're selling the solution to you, and you walk away, because we all have our lives, and we can't all focus on every little thing that's happening in the world, every crisis, every problem, every struggle, every situation, you know, every cause. And you walk away and you think that you made a big difference, when in reality you haven't. And like I said, a lot of this online activism, especially, if anything, you walk away in a bad mood. You walk away paranoid. You walk away with your mental health being affected. Where now you're, oh my god, all this is happening, and, you know, all the wars and all this shit. And it's a little bleak to say, but at the end of the day, we really don't have much of a effect, like a direct effect, or at least we can affect it, if that makes any sense.
And plus, a lot of it does get really draining. Like when you see how much is actually going on in the world, right? And I know a lot of people are like, oh, should I feel guilty for like tuning out, or, you know, wanting to not watch something like that today? And it's like, I don't think you should feel guilty. I think you should give yourself space, so, you know, you don't become doom and gloom all the time, because this stuff can be really, really heavy on the brain and on the mental space.
So, like, what you're bringing up, do you feel like, you know, when, like, for example, like all the wars that's happening around the world, that just the small wars that the wars that we're actually made aware of, especially with like mainstream media and everything, when we as a society that aren't being affected directly by these wars, we as individuals choose to, like what you say, just unplug and not really focus too much on it, what like you're saying, right, that you shouldn't feel guilty about it.
I'm saying because I know that there are people, and I've received this question too, where it's like, why are you not passionate about this cause? Why are you not passionate about this? And it's like, from my perspective, I feel overwhelmed when there's so much going on, and I know it's there. And it's like, to be quite honest with you, we can't do anything about these wars. Like, what do they want us to do? Like, enlist?
Yes.
And yeah, well, yeah, of course they want us to enlist, but it's like,
Maybe not you and me, but
wholeheartedly, right? Like, we can't do anything about that. Like, what the hell? And it's like, it sucks that it's going on. Like, it really does.
so what's your advice for someone, like, let's say, like, especially like a younger person listening, if someone feels like everybody, that's what they're being told, right, by other people, like, you're to speak up, especially living in a first, quote unquote, first world country.
Yeah.
You have all these benefits, you have all, you know, privileges and all that. Like, what do you think you would tell somebody?
We have the
How to deal is what I'm
how
telling
to
you.
deal with it. How to deal
with that, like,
how to deal
guilt or
with
whatever
the
you
guilt.
might feel.
I gotta think about that. Damn.
Because for me, that's one thing, like, especially with like social work, that I learned firsthand. Because I used to be kind of like, right after high school, for years I didn't give two about the world, but like right after high school, when I got especially into social work, I became a bit of an activist myself, or at least more active and like paying attention to what was going on in the world. And especially with like my passion with learning about different countries and cultures and everything, like,
Right.
I was exposed immediately to a lot of the shit that happens. And for years, that I used to feel helpless. And even when I kind of began like my walk with faith, I'm like, God, you know, help these people, blah 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 blah. And I've gotten that to the point, maybe because I'm older, I'm 32 now, where I'm like, it's up to say we have no control,
Yeah.
right?
We really don't.
Because there's so many wars happening, there's so much corruption, so much crime, so much, let's go back to like the topic of the video with the
Right.
environment.
With the environmental stuff.
Yeah, like there's so much that we do not have control over.
Now we can if we vote and do the proper voting and stuff, but even then we're not guaranteed.
And that's kind of the up part.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, these corporations and these politicians, they care about their wallets. They don't care about our feelings. They don't care about the environment. They don't care
Right.
about the safety of these people. And unfortunately, our society seems to not understand that, because they're more focused to kill each other than to understand like who's the ones pulling the strings in behind the scenes.
Then we get into like capitalism and all that other stuff, and I think that's for like another video too.
But if that was a problem though, what about countries where like communism / dictatorships happen? Like,
Well, yeah, that too.
yeah.
Understanding that how they got there is just as important as why they're there now.
I think it's a human thing.
Yep.
Where unfortunately, no matter how much of a good intention you have, you can only do so much. And I'm not saying this to discourage somebody who really wants to help, whether it's the environment, wars, whatever it is. If that's your passion, then go for it. But what I'm saying, understand that in this life, it's, we're only here for a limited amount of time. And there's only so much we can do, so much energy and so much attention and so much effort we can put in with our wallets even. And I think there's just so much of things in this world, so many causes out there. And you can do your part, go and do your part. But we got to focus on one thing at a time. But don't overwhelm yourself with all these problems, and don't put that pressure on yourself, because I hate that. Oh, well, we're privileged because we live in a first world country. Just because we live in a first world country, that doesn't mean that we don't have problems happening in our daily lives either.
Right.
You get me? So to me, it's like you gotta. I remember this from my friend who served as a Marine, U.S. Marine for like 8 years, and when he came out, I remember that one of his criticisms of the U.S. government, that he's like, instead of sending people out to fight wars in other countries, how about you fix what's happening inside of our country? Because there's so much that needs to be done and isn't being done, or is being neglected, to supposedly fight a fake boogeyman, when really it's all about minerals and resources and whatever. But But with that being said, like I said, I don't want to discourage anybody who's passionate about activism. If you're doing your part, good. But don't be online with this fakeness of, oh, I need to speak up. So, like all that fake shit. Because I've seen it with like disability and with racism. Like when people talk about like, this is racist. And as a minority myself, both somebody with a disability and somebody who's ethnic minority. Like, to me, I hate hearing that from other people when they tell you like, oh, this is racist, or this is this and this, and you should be outraged, or you should say something about it. And it's like, but I can say something, but what is the noise that I'm going to make going to actually do in the long run?
Right.
Because if my voice actually did matter, then that's one thing. But if I'm just speaking, if I'm just, feeding myself all this negativity that you see, especially if you just doom scroll throughout, your day, that's not healthy for yourself. You're not really doing anything what you think you're doing. And if anything, you're also feeding to the algorithm of a lot of these corporations that are feeding us these things on purpose to keep us like hamsters and these hamster balls. Hamster balls? Is that what they're called?
Yeah, hamster balls.
And running in circles, but really not going anywhere. So with that being said, guys, make sure to check out the channel. Check out the entirety of the video. We only did a couple videos. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel, like and share, and add in the comment section whether you are for or against activism, what you guys think. If you got any suggestions for those who are interested in that, and just add your comment. Let's keep it respectful as much as we can. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.